Hey, welcome to X3, One Topic, Three Pundits. I'm your host, John C. Dvorak. I'm here with Andrew Eisner and Joe Ingo, as usual. And we're going to discuss the big news, which is the apparently MySpace, which I think at one point was valued at $800 million or something like that, has now been sold. And Andrew, you've been following the story, or
Joe.
Yeah, they sold this morning for $35 million.
Wow.
With an M.
That is an incredible... I'm honestly surprised they're worth that much. Yeah. But yeah, the CEO's out. He's going to be out in 2 months, and they're laying off 75% of their staff. They're bought up by specific
This can
media.
happen to anybody in high tech.
Yes.
This is like anything can happen.
But I think they blew it. I mean, I think they had the kids, you know, social network, and for some reason let it go. I don't know, or didn't pursue it.
I think they were arrogant.
And I think they were just totally blown away by, I mean, they were too intimidated by Facebook.
No, I think they were. I heard that one of the crazy things I do, which sounds like I'm nuts, but ad tech, which is this kind of circus that goes around the world. They have all their lectures and speeches available as podcast downloads, all of them. Mm-hmm. And so I routinely download a bunch of them and then listen to them while I'm driving the car. And I remember very distinctly listening to a MySpace one from a few years back. Needless to say, I've been doing this for a while, where they were bragging about how kids were using MySpace as their homepage, and there was a lot of talk that was just all really full of themselves, I thought. And they didn't seem to pay much attention to the competition. They didn't care because they thought they had a tiger by the tail. And they never made any changes, and it became just basically I always thought MySpace was a mess. You go to MySpace and it's the greatest collection of animated GIFs in the world. And there's the cat running down across the back and the glowing thing and the happy birthday with the candles wiggling.
You couldn't even see most people's profiles because it was just dark backgrounds that are animated on top of black text. It was impossible to see it. I had so many of my friends that had just the most ridiculous profiles in the world. Mm-hmm. I try to get them to, clean it up, but of course they don't know any better.
Yeah, it did have a little of that Hello Kitty feel to it, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, well, but there's a huge audience for that. But I don't know how they couldn't continue to appeal to them somehow, because people they're very fickle and they all gravitated away.
Well, the one thing that they still had they still have up until today is bands.
Yeah,
a lot of bands are still on there, but they've never really just tried to emphasize on that. I mean, that's where their strong point. They should have just really went for that.
If they could have gone with the bands and then a store that sells the band's albums and maybe some download stuff, and they could have organized it a little better.
That would be great for indie bands. Produce your own album and come up with labels and all that stuff, and actually produce kind of a cafe press kind of thing, but specific for music. Yeah, I think that would have been a great idea.
Yeah, one of many ideas that we have here. Our panel will have for we will do consulting.
Yeah. I was going to say, meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Zynga looking at a $20 billion valuation and looking to raise $2 billion on an IPO.
Which is a lot, but not by today's standards, but it used to be a lot.
Groupon looking to do an IPO. They're looking to evaluate $20 billion. So, I mean, there's a whole...
These seem like some pretty inflated values.
Yeah. LinkedIn is maintaining at $8 billion. I mean, LinkedIn stock went up. I mean, the one that flopped was, I guess, Pandora. I mean, that didn't...
Well, the Zynga, the insiders on Wall Street are all jacked up about Zynga. They think this is a great thing. So I expect that one to fly and probably stick up there. It's not going to be like Pandora went, whoo, but which I think a lot of them would do. But I think Zynga is going to trigger an avalanche of IPOs, finally, even though these are all...
So we're looking at when was it, 1999, 2000, huh?
98, 99.
Everybody who had an idea, who had a website could do an IPO.
Well, I think there's going to be some of that. I don't think it's ever going to be that bad.
Well, it could. I don't know. These valuations are going through the roof right now.
The valuations are pretty tempting. It would tempt me if I had one of these little companies to go out if I could, take the money and hell with it after you do your IPO. You've been watching X3.